11th chapter, verses 2 through 6 of the chapter 11. Chapter 11 follows two chapters, 9 and 10, in which Jesus has been out ministering, caring for people. But not only Jesus, but he sent his disciples out, and they have been given authority by Jesus to be in ministry with people. And here we find John the Baptist in prison, and we pick up our text for today. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." May we hear these words in our lives for this day, for our life. Every day on his way to work in Springfield, Illinois, Jim Copeland stops by the local Circle K and gets a bottle of water and a donut. On his daily trek through the Circle K, he got to know the clerk behind the counter. They would start visiting and talking and chatting. Well, Mr. Copeland found out the clerk, Johnny Phillips, had to walk to work every day. He would walk to work for 10 hours, and then walk home again. His walk to work took him 2 hours each way. He walked 2 hours to work 10 hours, and then walked 2 hours back home again. Mr. Phillips was trying to put his life back together again. He'd been homeless in the past. He had lots of issues in his life. He had children at home. He was trying to do the best he could. And here he was showing up for work every day. 2 hours to work, 10 hours at work, 2 hours back home again. As Mr. Copeland got to listening, he heard Mr. Phillips talking about this walk to work. And in fact, Johnny Phillips is quoted as saying, "That walk, it was really difficult." The mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples for the transformation of the world. That's the United Methodist Church. We're a congregation, the United Methodist Church, and we're a part of that mission. The mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples for the transformation of the world. I like this. I think it's a little too small. I think it ought to say for the transformation of the cosmos, the universe, all creation, everything. But we can expand that if we want to. But I really hear this and think, well, this is powerful. We're about bringing goodness, love, justice, peace into this world, transforming the world. But I've always wondered, what is a disciple? What is a disciple? I think we need to answer that question. If we're to invite people to be disciples of Jesus, then we need to know, what is a disciple? We probably have lots of answers. Angela talked about with the children being a disciple, a follower of Jesus, but what are the qualities? What are we trying to invite people to? How are we trying to help ourselves grow as disciples? What is a disciple? Here was John the Baptist. He was a precursor to Jesus. He had proclaimed, "One is coming greater than I. He is God's person, God's Messiah. I'm not unworthy to untie the thongs of his sandal." And Jesus came to John to be baptized, and John said, "Whoa, I shouldn't be baptizing you. You ought to be baptizing me." surely John the Baptist, being the proclaimer of the arrival of God's Messiah, surely when Jesus came up out of the water and the heavens were opened and a voice said, "This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased," surely John heard this. John must have known something amazing was going on. But John was in prison. He'd been put in prison by Herod because he challenged Herod's abuse of power. That happens a lot when we challenge power and people who abuse power. You get thrown in prison. John, who was sent by God, who had encountered Jesus, began to wonder what was going on. And he sent some of the people with whom he'd been in ministry to ask Jesus, "Are you the one? Or are we to wait for another?" John the Baptist, this great person of God, was a questioner. I think this gives us a first clue to what maybe a disciple is. A disciple is someone who's willing to ask questions, even to question God. I don't think a disciple has everything figured out. I think a disciple is always wondering, what are we supposed to be about? Is this really what God wants, or is there something more, something different? Are you the one, or are we to wait for another? If this great man of God can ask God, "Are you the one?" then surely we can ask God questions about our lives. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Is our church being the church we're supposed to be? Is our world happening the way it's supposed to happen? So I think one of the first clues of being a disciple is we are to be people who ask questions, especially ask questions of God. Jesus' response? Well, let's talk a little bit about what Jesus did not say. Jesus did not say, "Go tell John that if you just believe the right way, if you just believe the right way, everything will be all right. If you'll just believe the correct way." No, that's not what Jesus said. Jesus didn't go back and say to John, "Well, if what you need to know is more people are going to church, more people are in church, that's how you can tell that I'm the one. More people are going to church." No, that's not what he said. Jesus didn't say, "Well, go back to John and tell him that if he does this, this, and this, then he'll know that I'm the one." Rather, Jesus simply said, "Go tell John what you see and hear. That God is bringing life, God is suspending love." The blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the dead are raised, and good news is being proclaimed to the poor. Second clue to being a disciple is beginning to comprehend when God is moving, it's about enhancing life and expanding love. Enhancing life and expanding love. Ask questions. Look for God's movement in expanding life and enhancing love. But then I think there's one more piece to being a disciple. Here was John the Baptist, this great prophet, this great person of God, questioning what was going on. But he was probably reading the news. and reading that people weren't getting along with each other. He was probably reading the news and finding out that teaching school is even more difficult than it's ever been. He was probably reading the news and finding out that there's war all over the place. He was probably reading the news and finding out that people are hurting other people. He was probably getting on Facebook and finding out that people are being mean to other people. And so he began to say, this is not what I had in mind when God sent the Messiah. So Jesus, are you the one? Or are we to wait for another? I think one of the keys of being the disciple is being willing to go below the surface. Being willing to dig a little bit deeper and really see where God is moving. Sometimes we just look and say, ain't it awful? If we look a little deeper, we might see God is moving, enhancing life, and expanding love. Jim Copeland, after visiting with Johnny Phillips at the Circle K in Springfield, Illinois, finding out he walked to work back and forth 2 hours each way, he began to think, what can I do? What can I do? As he began to think about this, he decided, maybe I can help him find another mode of transportation. Mr. Phillips had shared that public transportation didn't work. He came to work at night, it wasn't dependable, and he never knew when he was going to be able to get it. He said he walked to work in rain and cold and heat and snow and everything, 2 hours each way. But Mr. Copeland began to think about it, and he thought, I wonder if it would help him if I bought him a bicycle. He went on Craigslist, found a good bike, took it to a friend of his, who he said is a bike nut, and the friend fixed the bike up and said, yeah, this is a good bike. He tuned it up, adjusted it, made it so it was very rideable. And Mr. Copeland went to Circle K on his way to work one night and had Johnny Phillips come out and said, here, close your eyes. He let him out and he put his hands on the bicycle. He said, okay, now look. And Johnny Copeland looked at this bike and started crying. That trip back and forth to work was going to be a little easier, a little shorter, because somebody cared. I think this fits beautifully with our text. First of all, I think Johnny Copeland was able to see, Johnny Phillips was able to see a bit differently when he got that bicycle. I think, yeah, that bike maybe will help him get back and forth to work, but I think it maybe expanded his mind, expanded his creativity, and he began to think, maybe there are other ways for me to get back and forth. Bike worked great, better than walking. I think it also made the lame walk, well, not really, it made the walk ride. He probably saw himself as an outcast. He's had problems in life, he struggled. He probably didn't think much of himself, but suddenly, even though he might have felt like a leper, he found cleansing in his life. And he was given new life. He was raised up a little bit, and it was good news for this person who was struggling to get by. But I think it also applied to Jim Copeland. His eyes were opened. He was able to walk a little bit better, I think. He was able to feel better about himself and be cleansed. He was able to live life a little bit fuller. He didn't think too much of what he did, but News Channel 20 in Springfield found out about this, and they tried to interview Mr. Copeland. He refused to be interviewed. He said, it's not about me. It's about this man working so hard trying to get better. Good news was proclaimed to the poor. But I don't think this would have happened if Jim Copeland would not have been willing to ask a question. What can I do to make a difference? I think he opened himself up to the movement of God's love and began to think creatively, how can I help? I think he dug below the surface. He had to listen to another human being. He had to hear Johnny Phillips' story. He had to take that into his life. It wasn't just, well, here's a couple of bucks. It was really listening and trying to provide help where maybe it really could make a difference. The mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples for the transformation of the world. We've been asking ourselves as a congregation, as a community of faith, one simple question. What's next? I mean, look at us. We've got well over 100 years of beautiful ministry as a congregation in the Rose Hill community. You are wonderful people. You provide love and care and compassion for those in need. You care about each other. We pray for each other. We reach out in love and service. We make a difference in so many ways. We're going to pay our debt off at the end of 2018. Now, not everybody believes that. I may be the only one that really believes that, but I'm pretty sure we're going to. At the end of 2018, we're going to have paid off our debt. I think the big question then becomes bigger. What's next? What kind of church is God calling us to be? What kind of church, what kind of community do we want? Do we really think God is moving among us to be? We're talking about this among ourselves. We're having some conversations. Are we asking God? Are we questioning God? God, are we the church that we're supposed to be? Or do we look in a different direction? I know attendance is not a good thing, but I have a hunch you guys can be aware, and there seem to be plenty of empty places for people here. What's next? Are we supposed to be inviting more people in? I don't know. Where do we go from here? I think it has everything to do with asking questions, being aware that God is about expanding and enhancing life and expanding love, and being willing to dig below the surface and find out where God is really moving. What's next? Where do we go from here? I invite you to ask the question, and to listen, and to share your ideas. In the name of the God who loves us and is with us and who moves among us. Amen.